This week, my game went from looking like this to this. Let's get into it. How do you do? It's Mr. Moo, and this is a devlog for my game Stolen Hearts. I did a bunch of different stuff this week, besides redoing my tiles 3 or 4 times, which would make this like the 9th time I retiled everything. Which is okay, it's all part of the learning process. I don't think there's anything I've done in this game that I haven't already done 4 or 5 times that I'm happy with, and that's okay. The first thing I did was fix my start game sequence. First, my character would spawn, then it would zoom out to show the entire board, and then the game would begin. So if we stop right here, you'll see that here's my character, and here's the heart that he has to go get. When I had some people playtest the game, I noticed that they were wasting time looking for where the heart was rather than it being immediately obvious where they had to go. So I changed the intro so that it shows exactly where the heart is, so that there's no confusion as to where the character needs to go. The next thing I did was work on my camera. Before I worked on it this week, there was no camera that followed the character. It was just completely zoomed out so you can see the entire map, and there was nothing really super interesting about that, and it was actually kind of hard to see the character, so I wanted to add a camera. I didn't really know how to do it, so I just had the camera follow the character in the middle, locked in the middle position. I made sure that the camera didn't go out of bounds, but besides that, the character would remain in the center of the screen. And this kind of worked, except that it kind of made me want to vomit my brains out because it was really disorienting. It kind of worked, but at the same time, every time he jumped, the whole camera shifted. It wasn't actually showing all the information on the screen that I wanted to, and it was generally just kind of an uncomfortable camera situation. So I decided I was going to do some research on the matter, and I looked up on YouTube this very interesting talk about lots of different platformer camera options. The first option that I tried was the window option, which basically said if you go outside the confines of this window, the camera is going to follow you. This didn't really work as I wanted to, because I wanted the camera to show where the character was headed towards. In this game, it's important that the character sees what's coming at them or what's in front of them to anticipate either an obstacle or some sort of element of a puzzle so that they can solve it. And so with this camera method, it didn't show the player everything you needed to see. So after watching this entire video about all these different camera options, I settled on this other one. It's got kind of a tricky name, Threshold Triggered Dual Forward Focus, which essentially means the camera is going to show a little more of the area ahead of where the player is, but it also allows the character to move back a little bit before completely switching angles. So this actually worked very well for my game, and I was happy with this, and I moved on. The next thing I did was redo the background art. Now, for what had previously existed, it kind of felt like my background was very confined and in a cave almost. Even though there were trees and it was obvious that you're outside from the art, it didn't really feel like that because it felt so one-dimensional. I wanted to add a little more depth, so I used the parallax method that a lot of other games take advantage of to try to create that depth in my game. And here in the demo, you can see that there was a little parallax, but because my game is kind of confined, it's not like a standard scroller which keeps going right or keeps going left. Each level is kind of its own box. So I knew that this particular background wasn't going to be great for me. So I had to completely redesign my background image, made the trees a lot smaller. So what my idea was, I was going to make the parallax a lot more visible if I made everything a lot smaller, made a lot more trees, and so that's exactly what I did. As you can see, I was listening to the Cabinet Battle 3 demo. I was in complete Hamilton mode after it came out. It got released on Disney Plus. So here again, I'm using kind of a modified version of this Thomas Brush's method of creating background images, making things more saturated more and darker as they come closer to the screen. I also searched a good parallax tutorial that I'll link in the description that I used to create this effect. And for anyone who's not familiar with parallax, anyone not familiar with the parallax effect, it just means that the backmost layers of your background image are moving faster than the frontmost background image. Really feel like it has a lot of depth and as though you're really outside. As you can see, this is looking a lot better, and it really makes the environment, or at least I think it looks a lot better, it really makes the environment feel a lot more alive. Next, I added this moving fog on the forest floor, and so the frontmost fog is moving right, and then the next is moving left, and then as you go further and further back, they keep on switching directions. But it created this really cool effect. Using the same effect, I added these clouds on the backmost layer and the frontmost layer, and I added a light to the moon, which really made it pop, and the whole scene became a lot more interesting then. So here's one of my levels using this new updated image with all these effects. And the last thing I added was a front fog as well. So all the game objects and the character would be behind this thin layer of fog that I made very transparent, like it was really like you're in a living, breathing forest. Then I worked on the animation of my character a little more. Before, the character would just stand still, but I added a little squash and stretch just to the idle movement, and it just made my good knight here, he looks like he's ready to go. And then I worked on the dash animations, and I wasn't super happy with the sword. I'm going to have a competitive mode in this game in which the dash actually gives the good knight an advantage, but I didn't want people to think that the sword was going to be a competitive advantage. So I removed the sword, squash and stretch to the dashes. I messed around with particle effects. As you see here, the particles aren't really going in the direction I want, but in this case, for when my character is killed, this was the previous way they used to get crushed, is that they would have this little pop image that comes up. I replaced that with an explosive particle system that really gives a lot bigger of an impact, I think, but it obviously is too big now, so I have to rework it. But I thought that it gave the event a lot more oomph. So I'm pretty happy with this. I'm definitely going to modify it a little bit, but it's definitely a lot better than what I had. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe. I'm going to have more updates as I go. And yeah, that's it. Have a good one.